Welcome to the Divorce Allies podcast, a podcast and video series where we dive into all things divorce. Focus on the process of creating a settlement offer with a team of financial professionals, divorce mortgage planning specialists, parenting coordinators, narcissistic coaches. We cover all areas of the divorce settlement process from financial to emotional well-being. My name is Melissa Gragg, and I'm our financial mediator and business valuator. And I'm with Victoria McCooey, who is our high conflict divorce coach. Welcome, Victoria. How are you doing today?
I'm all right. How are you, Melissa?
Well, today we're actually talking about negotiations and narcissists and divorce mediation, which was the topic of our recent circle. And everybody was so excited because our narcissistic coach, Victoria, was giving us a little bit of, I guess, maybe an outline of how to get prepared mentally, maybe to negotiate. Or what do you think, what do you think we're really trying to help people with when they're dealing with a narcissist?
I think what we're mostly trying to help them with is to undo the triggers that they have built in already. Because, you've been so frustrated with the dynamic, this control that this person has been exerting over you for so long. I mean, it's why you're leaving the marriage, right? And after all these years, you're just programmed to react a certain way. So it takes a little practice to not react the way you normally would. And it's important in a negotiation because what's going to happen in mediation is they're going to say some outlandish lie, right? They are. And what you don't want to do is what you've been programmed, what you've been doing all these years is to react and to go, oh my God, that is not true. That's not true. Oh my God, why do you always lie? That is not what you want to do in the mediation, right? So it's hard to undo that thinking, but what you want to do is let them lie. Let them paint themselves into a corner. You maybe can use it later, but let them do what they're going to do. So we came up with this 4-step process, right?
Yeah. And even before we kind of get into the 4-step process, one of the things when you're dealing with a narcissist is we hyper focus on the narcissist. Like we want to figure out why they're doing things, what they're doing, their issues. And quite frankly, this is starting to refocus on how you can respond and how you can kind of come off of that cycle that they have, because this is the relationship cycle that you've been in for quite a long time. And so coming back off of that is like, how do I focus on how I respond, and that's where your 4-step process came in, is like, how can I control myself and not so much focus on like what they're doing?
Exactly. You hit the nail on the head. It's like you've been putting all of your energy, we all have, I'm not disparaging anyone, we all do it, I certainly did it, on trying to get them to behave properly, on trying to fix them, on trying to make them normal, right? And you're at your own disservice, so we're putting the focus back on you. Here's a perfect example of when the light bulb went off for me. It was, mine was a long time ago, and there was a lot of other kinds of abuse, but not physical, until one day he actually did choke me. But here's how it happened. He had grabbed my wallet and was taking all the cards out, and I'm trying to get the wallet back, and it was ridiculous, like a tug of war over a freaking wallet. And that's when, I'd been trying to behave better about engaging with him. And I came to my senses in the heat of the moment, and I went, wait, I'm just taking the bait here. I'm just engaging in the crazy drama, and I let go. I didn't mean to do what happened after, but I just caught myself and I let go. Well, what happened was he fell because he was pulling, and he hit the window, and it broke, and and he was so embarrassed that I had caused him to fall. But I didn't even know any of this because I let go, I turned, and I walked away. And that was what triggered him. Like, he lost his marbles over this. And that was when he came up and choked me. But this is what we want to do. You you do you. You don't do what's best for you. Is it best for you to be having a tug of war? No, don't have the tug of war. Let go. Let go. Let them fall.
Mm-hmm. And again, it's the control thing. Like you didn't really have, maybe even from a physical position, you didn't have the capability to take it from him. Like, and this is where we have to just understand that some of the limitations in the negotiation, in the divorce in general, are going to be things that you cannot control. And so when we talked about this and you kind of introduced your 4 steps, everybody was like, oh, wow, okay, this could really be, when you're breaking a pattern and you're getting out of something that is just kind of your normal response system. I feel like you have to have these 4 steps that you almost like continuously go back to and say, okay, I got distracted again by that narcissistic or toxic behavior. Let's start back at the beginning. What do I need to focus on? And so like maybe you can tell us the 4 steps and then we'll go through them one by one and kind of dissect them a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first one is don't try to undo their lie. So here they are telling some outrageous tall tale about you that is totally untrue. So instead of taking the bait, and saying, that's not true, and trying to defend yourself, and zip it, just zip it. Let them go off, let them get deeper and deeper into it, let them tell their lies, and you don't engage. Just don't engage. Stoic, no expression, nothing. Okay, so.
Well, and one of the things that we talked about in the circle when we talked about this is that in the way that you defend yourself to the lie, right? You know it's a lie. They know it's a lie. They're getting you to defend yourself. They're getting you to get distracted by whatever lie that they came up with. But when you defend yourself, you're going to give too much information. You're going to like give away the farm because you're going to be like, no, the lie's wrong because of A, B, C, D, E, F.
And now you're telling things that you don't need to tell.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Exactly. I didn't even think of that aspect of it. And also, you look unhinged.
Yeah.
Because chances are it could not seem as big of a deal to a third party, right? Mm-hmm. It could be something like, well, she's a terrible because she never cooks dinner for the kids. It's like, I always have to. And if you lose your crap over this, you look a little crazy. Right?
Well, and the lies are consistent. Like this is where we talked a little bit about the dog whistling and how like they're going to say something that completely unhinges you, right? They're going to be like, "Oh, nice sweater," or "Oh, did you set that paper on the couch?" And they're going to use like little words or things that nobody else thinks is triggering. And they might even say the lie in a very like basic way. Right. And again, if you're prepping for mediation or in any sort of hearing, the proper way to deal with that is to have a side meeting with your team, attorney, whatever it is, or have that conversation with somebody after that meeting, but not to feed into it. And this is going to be very hard because you're in a pattern of proving that you are right. You're in a pattern of proving that they are wrong, where if we're in this far in the divorce, it doesn't matter you to prove that they're wrong to them. It matters when it comes to the court, or it matters when you come to the mediation. And it matters if you have documentation that would say that they're lying as opposed to you verbally saying that they're lying. So those are some of the pieces that I think that will help, like don't distract from it. But then if you know that these are the same lies that they say each time, have some additional proof. Like I know you don't cook for the kids, and I do because they have allergies. What allergies do the kids have? And if they can't tell what the allergies of the kids have, which they probably can't, then that proves not only do you cook for them, but you understand that there are complications to the type of food that can be provided. And that's not, you're not responding to them, but you're offering up that information in a concerted way, but very much stop reacting to the lie.
So just to keep it simple so you can remember in the heat of the moment, just don't react, right?
Yeah.
You don't know what they're going to say. So you can't anticipate, well, if he says this, I'm going to do this. And he said, just overall, don't refute the lie.
If you know it's a lie, you should never have to prove it, right? And don't feel the impetus to prove it right then. Log it down, write it down,
Write
and you can
everything
even
down.
put a little column called lies and write them down and then discuss it with your team later.
All right. So the next one, number 2, repeat the lie for the record. Say, oh, so he says, oh, she never cooks dinner. I'm like, oh, so you believe I never cooked dinner. Okay. So I never cooked dinner. Just so that you have it straight, right? Everybody, that's a little simple. Maybe it's something more complex. You want it to be accurate for everyone to hear that he has said what he's said, right? What's an example you can think of?
Like this would be if they say you never cook dinner, you would say, let me make sure I understand this. You're saying that in a given month, there are no days and no meals that I
That's a good
provide any sort of, cooking or providing food. But you're not saying that I'm starving the children, because sometimes you want to elicit like almost a response of like starving the children, like, because I don't need to cook. I could provide food to them other ways, but you're clarifying. Let me make this clear. You believe that in any given month, I never cook for these children.
Perfect. So you reiterate the lie in some capacity like that so that it's clear what they're committing to here. And then number 3, ask for more details. So that would look like, oh, so how many, like you said, how many times, how I never, or how many times in a month? Let me think of another way.
How is that possible? You can say, how is it possible that I never cook for the children, and yet we go to the grocery store and we are always eating at home? Because again, you're kind of trying to bring up the dichotomy.
Right. So if let's think of a different example. If how about money? So you can say, oh, she works, she earns so much money that is not on her W-2. She does side hustles all the time, and there's so much hidden income, and there's all this stuff. You go, so how am I earning more money? Tell me more about where I get this money. What are these jobs that I'm doing? Ask them to get deeper and deeper, right?
Mm-hmm. Because typically lies, because they're created, right, and they're not true, they're not going to have the details. They're not going to, and if they do, then you want them to expose, well, I saw your PayPal and there was money coming from other people for, the flowers that you created for them. Or I saw this Zelle payment, or like you almost want them to start to tell on themselves of how they saw that, because they probably saw something minuscule and then blew it up to the big lie. And you want to say, okay, well, how is that possible? Like, where am I getting this extra money? Could you show me?
And now you have information. Now you know, oh, he saw some stupid little 25 something come in through Zelle, and he's blowing it up into, this statement. And now you can just provide all your Zelle transfers and go, yeah, there's no money there.
Right.
And then finally we have number 4, let them dig themselves deeper. Just let them go. And they will go and go and go. And if no one else is talking, they will have to fill the space, right? They're on a roll, and it's that delusion and that grandiosity that everyone's just going to believe whatever I say. If they're fed this, if you're like, oh, and I did, and that happened, and then what happened, and that, oh, and then more, they will just keep elaborating and keep elaborating, and it's more ammunition for you when the time comes for you to refute this.
Well, and I think that normally, because there are so many lies that are told by the spouse, do you think it's just an automatic? And, we talked about this a little bit because we want to be seen as the good person, right? And so because we want to see the good person, the moment they tell the lie, we go right into defending ourselves.
That is such an important point because, women who are in these relationships with toxic men are typically a type also. Just like they're a type, we're a type too. And I am one of you, so I can say this. We are people pleasers. We are list makers and box checkers and good girls and law abiders and rule followers. And we want to be seen as the good person. So when someone says something negative about us, it's our nature to contradict it, to say, oh, no, I'm good. I would never do that. Of course I feed my children. Oh, no. I think, all of these ridiculous things. So it's going to be harder for you to rein that in than for most people.
Yeah. And I think that they're going to, when they get into these situations, when they get into mediation, they're excited to be in your space. And whether it's in person or it's online, they just want access to you. They want to be able to see you. They want to be able to watch you and see your responses and get that same adrenaline from sort of the chaos of the relationship, especially if you've kind of left that situation. Like they're dying for it. So they're going to immediately go to kind of these tall tales, right? And prove, and you kind of have to think back and say, has there ever been a time that you prevailed in proving them wrong, right?
I know I say that to clients a lot of times, but I told him whatever. I said, did you expect him to go, oh, Mary, you're right. Now I understand. Now I see. Like you're waiting for something that's never going to happen.
No, like ever. And I think that if we go back through these 4 steps, what do you think in kind of prepping for mediation or being involved? So not only thinking of like, don't try to undo their lie, repeat it for the record, ask for more details, let them dig themselves bigger. If we go back to repeat it for the record, we also have talked about in the circle of, using email to kind of enunciate when things happen. So if they do some of these things when you're not in mediation, you're in public or you're around the kids or it's at a family thing, there might be times where you're going to be around them and they're going to take every second to try to get a jab in. And so when those things happen, or when they say, you know what, we could just make this a lot easier if you just let me keep the property and I'll pay you something every month, you should go back and send an email. Instead of responding to them in words, you should go back and send an email. Like, it looks like that you want to get this done quicker and you're willing to talk about options. Would you be interested in talking to a mediator?
Just tonight, I just had a phone call tonight from one of our clients, and she said, well, he owns some property and he wants to hold on to them and sell them later. So he said, well, when he sells them later, he'll give me half if I do this now. And I'm like, okay, yep, that sounds pretty accurate.
And we talk about this like in a business sense, like when you sell your company, whatever you get at the closing table is all you can count on. And so when you're getting divorced, whatever they're going to give you and allow you to have, because they don't think you should get anything at divorce mediation or anything else, and you agree to it, if those agreements are for something that's going to happen in the future, even getting an agreement to get alimony or maintenance, you still have to wait each month. I mean, I have clients that literally the person will wait and pay late, 5 days late. Well, now you don't have money. Like each month, you're sort of on the edge of your seat and you
They're
don't
still
know.
controlling you.
They're still controlling you. Absolutely.
Yeah. And, with toxic people, yeah, it's always better to get a lump sum and not to have to depend on them. You're going to be chasing them down for the rest of the time they owe you.
Yeah, for the most part, that's why we're recommending that people actually create, what they want going into these things. And even starting, like if you're even considering getting divorced, start to, everybody wants to come in and we did a live divorce allies recently. And one of the women who came was just like, I want what is due to me. I want what I deserve. I want half of this and everything, what is legally my right. And I think that when you're divorcing a toxic person, they're going to hide things, make things look different. You may never know the real truth about everything. So I think you have to reverse engineer this and say, what am I going to be okay with? Like I have known assets. Like if I get the house, if I get retirement, if I get some alimony, how much do I need in order, like you don't always get what you need, but you should start to think of what would make me whole. And we say, then put that in a settlement offer, but that gives you clarity. So when they're distracting you with the lies, you're staying focused on the house, the kids, the retirement, the alimony, period.
Listen, I wish I'd had you way back then, because not only did I feel that way, but everyone around me, my family, my friends, everybody, oh, you need to like fight and get everything here. And everyone riles you up. Like 6 years of torture. It's, what is it worth, right? What is your mental health worth? What is moving on worth to you? And also the legal fees incurred. You're cutting off your nose to spite your face. So
Well, absolutely. But also, you thought that when you got to the court and the judge, that the judge would fix everything and that everything will somehow, like go correctly and you will get what you are
right.
due.
Do you know what people think? People think the judge is going to go, he did what to you? Oh my God. Well, here, you just get everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that doesn't happen.
No, your day in court is not where you're going to get this vindication. Like, he was really awful to me. And they're going to be like, oh, he's going to get punished for that. No, nobody cares. Nobody cares what they did.
Well,
It's
and a
just
lot of
business.
times they're trying to use some of these things and, like for example, I may or may not be going into a deposition soon where they haven't given us all the information. And everybody wants to act like we're just going to go ahead and we're going to have to do it twice. And so I'm like, "Hey, why don't you tell them that this is not okay? Like we're not there, they haven't given us the information. You're wasting our time. Why do you think that the other side wants to continue on? First of all, toxic spouse. Second of all, toxic attorney, because they usually hire one. But why do they want to do that? Who the heck knows? But what is it going to cost my client? Now for the deposition, she's going to have to pay an attorney for the entire day to do depositions where I'm already telling them at the beginning, I don't have a value. You haven't given me the numbers. So I know that we're going to go into the deposition and they're going to have a fishing expedition, but they're then going to say, oh, we're going to have to do this again.
Yeah. And guess what? You've taken off from work. You've gotten the babysitter. You're paying your attorney by the hour. You might have sometimes they have an associate with them. You have to pay the court reporter. Maybe there's a law guardian there. I mean, oh my gosh, the amount of money it takes to get all these people in a room.
Yeah.
It's
And then
crazy.
the other side has the same people. And quite frankly, that's all coming out of marital money in some capacity.
Yep.
Or you're having to borrow money from other places. So again, you can't even control the costs in these situations unless you guide them to mediation. And if you guide them to mediation, it's not that it can cure everything, but why would you wait until like a trial that keeps on getting moved, keeps on getting moved, keeps on getting moved when you could at least, like we say mediation is your first opportunity to see what a judge would do.
Right.
So use that mediation to present your case, present your position. And if the mediator's like, well, I like point A and point C, but point B, write down what they say. The mediator is literally like, it's almost like a practice run for trial. But also, if you could settle it, if you could, You have to be ready to bring all of the roadmap to the table at the mediation. And that then you have a little bit more control over.
And I think it's pretty easy typically to get a narcissist to agree to mediation. Well, if you trick them into it, they think they can overpower you. They're happy, first of all, to have that kind of exposure to you, right? To be in a room with you and to have some mediator they think they can totally dominate. And they know they have practiced dominating you. They don't know that this is you 2.0. And so, they think this is a great opportunity.
Well, and sometimes they've already moved on. And so, because they really don't have feelings. And so they didn't have to get over anybody because they only love themselves. And so, if they barely love themselves, but then they're not only willing to do mediation, but they usually are ready to move on to the next relationship. And that gives them this like need. They also see mediation as like, oh, we're going to go and everything's going to be settled by the end of that mediation.
Oh, yeah.
So you now have control to say no at the end of the mediation, to use it to gain information, to get documents, to ask questions, to get a mediator to give you your first trial run at a court hearing, right? And then you walk away with more information than you had when you started. They will lose their mind if you are not settled at that first mediation date, because everybody like falsely thinks that mediation can just work no matter what. Across the board, it actually doesn't work unless you are prepared, unless you have a plan, unless you have planned for him going right, left, and you've done that decision tree and you are prepared. Because narcissists and toxic people, they don't prepare. So you have this opportunity to have a leg up in the negotiations if you prepare and they are unprepared. They also will make a decision very quickly, not thinking. And if you come to an agreement in that first mediation and everybody is there witnessing the agreement, even if it's not in writing yet, because you actually leave there and then the attorney's documented it, it could take another month before they put it all together. If you get to that point, you have some control over the outcome and you have now leverage of whether they can continue. So it's kind of shifting the perspective from finishing. Your goal shouldn't be to finish, right? And if they make some quick decision that is in your favor, like I was okay with this settlement offer, and now they're like, fine, because they want to go get married like tomorrow, right? So if you get that ripe situation where they make a decision and they settle, there's no way, like if they go back the next day and be like, oh, I didn't want to do that. That was too irrational. No, their attorney is going to hands down say, we can't go renegotiate this deal, but they will renegotiate it in the details. So now you're writing up the documents and the divorce decree that you're going to put into the court. They will then negotiate these little pieces. Oh, I forgot this piece. Oh, I forgot this piece. Oh, I forgot this piece. So be prepared for that reality. So if that's the reality, don't just settle because you're there and everybody's doing fear tactics of like, oh, it's going to be so much worse if you don't settle. It's going to be bad. No, take your chances to learn in the mediation and then determine how much further you want to go after that.
And guess what? You can still settle, right? Just because you don't settle in mediation doesn't mean you're going to trial. Everyone thinks they're going to trial. 4% of cases go to trial. You're going to settle most likely.
If you can get in the mediation about 50 to 75% of the issues settled, which is why a lot of mediators go at the low-lying fruit, right? They first start off with the easy things. Let's settle, settle, settle. That makes everybody feel good. And then they'll hit them with the hard. if you can get about 50 to 75% of things settled, when you leave mediation, you may or may not have to go back to mediation. You can then kind of just lobby and volley those kind of offers back and forth through email. And so the first mediation is really just, do you have an opportunity to be prepared when somebody is not prepared? And then if both of you are prepared or they're just not budging on things, allow the mediator to try some tactics, right? Of what they believe about your story and going in your position. And then you can figure out what to do next. So
And
yeah.
What a more cost-effective method. Do as much as you can in mediation. You're going to get a lot of the crap out of the way, and the lawyers aren't doing it, right?
Yeah.
They're going to try to negotiate your case, but they're doing it at $400 an hour or whatever they are.
Well,
I mean, I have a client, one of my clients has an attorney that's $800 an hour.
Oh, yeah. Well, and because they're usually splitting the cost between the two parties. So it could be like a $600 an hour because each party's paying $300 an hour. So the other thing is that in the mediation, if you come prepared and they come prepared and you're going through all of this process of discussing things, typically mediators want some information before the mediation. So what that creates is that each side is going to be giving like their best position. And so it does allow you to see like, why are they not kind of being reasonable? Because usually when they're not reasonable, it's because the lawyer found a loophole in the legal system that is beneficial. We see this a lot in separate assets. And so like somebody will have a family business and they never intended to have it separate. And so maybe somebody dies and then they get the business. It was never properly gifted. It was never properly transferred as a separate asset. But when the attorney comes in, they're like, oh, you had this. Oh, it was a family business. Oh, well, we should just say it's gifted. We should just draw up some stock certificates and make whatever up. We should just do whatever and say, and then we'll have the mom or dad testify to like, yeah, I gave it to Johnny and I never intended to give it to Sally. It's mostly a lie. So in those types of situations, you're also forcing them to prove it to you. And so in where your lessons kind of go is to ask for more details. In mediation, you want to ask for more details. So you think it's separate. Why? How? Prove it to me. Show me the documentation, and if you think, well, we had $100,000 and now it's gone, you should be presenting that to the mediator so that you can have the mediator go to them and say, where did the money go? You might not ever get that answer unless you go into mediation and they're forced to comply with the mediator. Because if they don't answer the mediator's questions, the mediator's not going to be very happy with them. And the mediator has emotions like nobody's business, right? Because they're usually former judges or attorneys and they operate as such. So they don't want to be ignored or belittled. So allow that. That's where you let them dig themselves deeper in the mediation. Okay.
Yeah. Well, you and I could talk about this all day.
I know. We needed
to get so excited.
Any takeaways, any final advice that you have for people kind of in this position?
Yes. Practice self-control, right? It's a new muscle you have to exercise because you're not used to not reacting. Yeah. That's the biggest hurdle.
That's awesome. Well, thanks, Victoria.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll see you again soon.
Okay, bye.